Howdy, y'all, and welcome to today's edition of the Royals Rundown Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This show, as always, is brought to you by RoyalsReview.com, your one-stop shop for all things Kansas City Royals. Whether you need to know about the latest news, hottest prospects, or want to chat with other rabid Royals fans, you can do so at RoyalsReview.com. I am Jake Milham, and joined today by the illustrious Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how are we feeling this fine Sunday?
Well, yeehaw! Howdy to you too, Jacob.
Did I have the drawl on a little bit too much there?
You were the howdy just threw me completely.
Well, see, the weird thing is, Jeremy, I wouldn't blame listeners if they forget about the Royals recap, the recap in each individual game that we do during the season.
Are we doing that again?
We might do that again.
Because I thought you said we weren't doing that no more because it like damaged the way Spotify would show our stuff.
I don't know. I just think more people need to follow and subscribe to the podcast, and maybe I'll do it. I don't know. I think we'll set a benchmark. If we get to X amount of followers on Spotify, screw it. I'll do the recaps again. But what I was gonna say is you sounded a lot.
You have to define X though.
I know. Well, apparently not in 2025. X is just a thing out there, right? It's the everything app. Anywho's, what I was going to say is you sounded a lot like one of the guests, one of the call-ins that we have on the Royals recap there, Jeremy. Do you have any relations that might be calling in to the show?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
My dad, but he doesn't. I don't think he listens, and he doesn't have a crazy cowboy drawl either.
That's so strange. That's weird. Okay. All right. Well, it is just one of life's many mysteries, I guess. So, listen, we got a lot to talk about with the Royals, but before we get to that, if you like what we do here or are a Kansas City fan, please follow us or subscribe to the podcast. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, wherever you get your podcasts from. If you want to continue the conversation with us, you can comment on Spotify. I know Jeremy was in there commenting and responding to folks, and I tried to do so in a timely manner as well. Or you can follow us on social media. Our links are down in the podcast description below. Or if you want to stay off of social media, shoot me an email. I have a couple of emails to catch up on from listeners, so sorry about that, y'all. All right, today's episode, a lot of roster moves. Mark Canha is now a Kansas City Royal. 3 notable Royals are off the 40-man roster right now, and plus we have a full picture of what the pitching core is going to look like on that opening day roster. But Jeremy, let's go ahead and start off with Canha. So let me set the table real quick before we get your opinions on it. So Canha, really experienced MLB veteran. We spoke about him earlier on this offseason. Was not catching on very well with the Milwaukee Brewers. Reportedly, he was a prime opt-out candidate of his minor league contract. The Royals decided, hey, we got a spot for you on our bench, and traded with the Brewers. It's either going to be a player to be named later or cash considerations, so that could be a myriad of things. But Canha came in and he impressed in his lone Cactus League outing. I would say I was like, okay, this is I can get used to this every game.
Sure, 3 singles is great, but what's not great is being tagged out at home after an infield fly.
Yeah, that's not
great.
Where
are you going, Mark Canha?
Well, he was trying to go home, but alas, that did not work out very well.
What really cracks me up is that on the final day of spring training, he gets more hits than he had the entire rest of spring training combined.
Yeah.
He had 2 hits the entire time he was in Brewers spring training.
Hey, what do we say about changes of scenery, Jeremy? Okay, so that's all you need.
Maybe he's about to become a superstar again. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Or for the first time.
I would go for the first time, Jeremy. So I'll talk about all the numbers and stuff when I talk about them. But how do you feel about this move?
Here's my thing is, you said you want to talk about the numbers, so I'll try not to talk too much about the numbers, but I will make one. My first thought was the guy we were kind of looking at once we realized Taylor Ward probably wasn't going to happen. And the guy who kept coming up in rumors was Starling Marte.
Yeah.
Right. Starling Marte, 36-year-old right-handed outfielder, probably shouldn't be playing in the outfield very much anymore. Not the hitter he used to be, can still crush lefties. Hey, Mark Canha, 36 years old, outfielder, probably shouldn't be playing in the outfield much anymore. Crushes left-handers.
Huh.
And
Weird.
a tenth of the cost in
Yeah.
terms of salary. I think he's going to get 2 million this year, or close to that with some incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Starling Marte was going to get close to 20,
Yeah.
and acquiring Canha required only a player to be named or cash, whereas the Mets were trying to get Hunter Harvey or
Yeah.
Angel Zerpa. Yeah, I think I can see why the Royals did that deal. So that's what Mark Canha brings to the table. He is a guy, he doesn't have quite as much power as Marte, doesn't have quite the speed of Marte, does bring a lot more OBP, which is something
Yeah.
we've talked about. Something I've specifically talked about as wanting to add to this Royals lineup is get me some OBP, get me some consistency with this lineup, get me guys who get on base more often.
Mm-hmm.
We've got guys who can strike out and hit for power. Hey, give me some guys who can get on base so that when they hit those home runs, they're not solo shots. And Mark Canha brings that. He also brings a little bit of positional versatility that Starling Marte does not bring, and that he can play first base, which becomes important based on another, probably the most important thing that happened in the Royals' final spring training game yesterday, which was Vinnie Pasquantino straining his hamstring. Now,
Yeah.
Vinny's gut tells him that his hamstring is fine, but I will wait to see what the doctor's brains say before I make any super big determinations there. Hopefully he's okay, but it is a little scary if he misses time. It will mean that he has missed time in every single major league season he's played, which, the shoulder thing seems to be behind him, and the broken thumb thing seems to be an issue. I'm sorry, I've completely derailed us from talking about Mark Canha, but I'm worried about Vinny.
Yeah.
These injuries are not all related to each other, and it's not like, oh, well, he's injury prone because a guy ran into his hand and broke his thumb, but I'm worried.
Yeah.
So
As we should be.
Mark Canha gives the Royals a little bit of positivity there, and like, okay, if if they don't make that trade and Vinny's hurt, who's playing first base? We
Yeah.
had this question last year, and the answer was, we'll trade for Yuli Gurriel. Mark Canha is a little younger than Gurriel, at least. So hopefully this works, and he has
Hopefully.
had a history of more success than Gurriel, because Gurriel hadn't even played
Yeah.
in 2023 when the Royal I don't remember if he played in 23. He'd only been in the minors in 24.
Correct. He was with
So
the Marlins in 23.
yeah, okay. So Canha was decent last year. So they've got a first baseman and they've got an outfielder, got a guy who can hit some lefties a little bit, which is going to be important when you've got a Michael Massey, a Vinny Pasquantino, an MJ Melendez kind of trying to anchor the middle of your lineup after, Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez. It gives you some insurance kind of if Renfroe is a dud.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I remember when we spoke about the Royals possibly going out and getting Marte, one of the reasons why I was really open to that move is because it felt like a good stopgap option between like rushing up Jack Caglione or letting him develop a little bit more down on the farm. So Canha, he's only on a 1-year deal, a very, very cheap deal, like you said, Jeremy. So I feel like this is a very frugal move for the Kansas City Royals. I'm all a fan of that. Now, I do want to talk about some of the good. You brought up OBP, and I really underestimated his on base percentage.
Yeah.
Even in a down year by his standards, his walk rate last year, 11%, double
Yeah.
digits is good, 83 percentile in Major League Baseball. Great. He doesn't chase at all, and when he makes contact, he makes not hard hit contact, but he makes quality contact.
He's a little bit of a right-handed Nick Prado, except he can hit the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair.
He plays first base in the outfield, and he can hit the ball, and he's patient. He's got a good eye. No one can say that Nick Prado doesn't have a good eye.
True.
It's just sometimes Nick Prado's a little too patient, and I don't think that's going to be an issue with Canha.
No, I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. Now, the bad. where this comes in. One of the big red flags that we spoke about when we talked about him earlier on this winter were some of his expected stats. Some of his expected stats last year were in the absolute dirt. Like I'm talking expected slug, 306. I get it. He's kind of a soft hitting guy, but that was even down in the second percentile. Like that is
Yeah.
really, really low. And even considering his how good he is at drawing walks and drawing out a plate appearance, his expected WOBA at 288, very, very low, 16th percentile in all of baseball. So those are definitely some concerning things. And like you brought up, he is an older guy. He did make his major league debut a little bit later than some other players would, but he's got a lot of games under his belt. So I was looking at this at a glance earlier on this offseason. I was concerned that maybe the inevitable decline has come for Mark Canha, and that's why he couldn't get a major league deal this offseason. That's why he's been bouncing around with like 4 teams in the past 2 seasons. But I mean, I don't know. Like if you got him on your bench, he made a great first impression. I feel better about the major league outfield right now than I did 2 days ago before the Royals acquired him. I think he doesn't raise the ceiling, but he helps solidify the floor.
Absolutely, and that's still something I think that's a big thing that the Royals are looking for in their outfield. You've got an MJ Melendez and a Hunter Renfroe that you can look to raise the ceiling. If either one of them figures it out, like if Hunter Renfroe is in the best shape of his life, he lost some weight, he's
Yeah.
worried about he's like I gotta cut. I was starting to figure things out. I got hurt. And I feel like it was because I wasn't taking care of my body the way I needed to. So he changed that. If he fixed it and he can do it this year, great. If MJ Melendez's swing changes kick in and he can hit the tar off the ball without striking so much, then great. So Mark Canha gives you some floor that if neither of those things happen or only one of those things happen, you've still got some floor here where, an MJ Melendez who hasn't figured things out or a Hunter Renfroe who hasn't figured things out, the floor, it's a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
Now you've got a floor.
Yes.
And I just got to say, Jacob, I know you're talking about the expected numbers, but career 349 OBP. That is a
That'll play.
good OBP in the current iteration of Major League Baseball. And last year's number was a 344.
Yeah.
So it's not like he dropped off a cliff somewhere. This is a guy, he put up one WAR last year.
He did.
He's got a little juice left in him, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, floor, baby. That OBP is floor.
It is. It really, really is. And the asterisk that I have to put on all the concerns I brought up, he was still an above average guy at the plate. He had
Yep.
an above 100 WRC plus that would have led all of the Kansas City Royals outfielders in 2024.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, it feels like damning with faint praise to say he had a 102 WRC plus, guys. But this is one of those things we've been talking about the last couple of years with this iteration of the Royals is just some of these guys are so below average that you just replace them with average. They've got their superstars. They've got their Bobby Witt Jr., their Cole Reagans, their Lucas Urseg. They need some average guys to hold up that floor so when the superstars go off, they're not going off by themselves.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Of course, the organization had great things to say about what Canha brings. Piccolo talking about he's just a professional at bat every single time he goes to the plate. Quatrero bringing up a good point. Like, hey, he's a veteran guy. He hasn't been on these elite teams, but he does know what he's doing, and he's going to help along some of these younger guys. And also, one other thing I feel like I got to bring up: he's not a complete defensive liability either. Like he can hold down left field, he can hold down first base, both of them competently. Like last year, he didn't qualify for the outs above average leaderboards or percentile. He was dead average. He had 1 outs above average, which is okay. I will take that. And back to your point about average, that might even be a valuable add compared to guys like Melendez and Renfroe, who had notably negative impacts in the field. Jeremy, anything else you want to say about Canha?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comparison here of the 344 OBP last year, right?
Okay.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
There's this other guy who had a little bit more power, had a 179 ISO. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I could pull it up maybe real quick. A Canha's ISO was like 111. It was in the one teens. So
Okay.
that's a good 50, 60 points more ISO. But this other guy it was a 104 ISO last year. So even actually worse than that. But still, there's this other guy who had a 170 something ISO, but then only had a 323 OBP. So dropped some of that, whatever, a lot of what he gained in ISO, he dropped in OBP
Mm-hmm.
and ended up with a 111 WRC plus last year. I was a guy that I was very excited about, the 30-year-old Taylor Ward. So for, again, a lot less cost in acquisition than what I projected the Royals would have to give up to get Ward, they get
Yeah.
a Mark Canha. And Canha is 36, which is like, oh man, how long is he going to be good? Is he even going to be good this year? Well, guess what? Gavin Cross should be ready this year. Jack
Hopefully.
Caglione, I think, is going to be ready this year. He doesn't have to hold down the fort forever. He just has to help bridge the gap until the reinforcements are ready. And
Right.
here the final point is that if this doesn't work out, or if he's holding up a floor and MJ Melendez and Hunter Renfroe are both bottomless pits, and they're like, man, we still need another outfielder. Gavin Cross still isn't ready. Jack Caglione still isn't ready. As we get to the deadline, you can still go out and get another outfielder
Mm-hmm.
because the Royals didn't give up anything to
No.
get Mark Canha, really.
No.
Not in terms of trade bait, not in terms of salary. There's room to make another move at the deadline if they have to. So
Yeah.
this doesn't have to be the end. Some people were like, well, the Royals aren't going to make a move. They can still make a move for an outfielder. This doesn't prevent that from happening. It just helps us get to the deadline, hopefully in better shape, if that still does need to happen. Sometimes that's
About
all you
Canha.
need.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got a small nick and you just need a band-aid. You got a paper cut. Just get a band-aid. Band-aids aren't bad.
No, they're
They
not bad.
have their purposes.
Yes, they do. They are useful. You don't know you need them until you don't have them. And
Exactly.
so, but moving on, so there was a question about, okay, Canha, they traded for him. He started for the Royals in Cactus League action, but he was not added to the 40-man roster yet. And the Royals had to clear some space. Well, they had to clear some space anyways. Jeremy and I have talked about it, into the dirt. And the Royals made some moves official on Sunday, outrighting 3 players to remove them from the 40-man roster. Outfielder Nelson Velasquez, first baseman and former first-round pick Nick Prado, and right-handed flamethrower Carlos Hernandez. They were placed on the outright waivers. Unfortunately, the Philadelphia Phillies claimed Carlos Hernandez, so he is added to their 40-man roster.
And even more
Prado,
unfortunately, no one claimed Nelson Velasquez or Nick Prado.
don't worry, you will still see both of those guys in Omaha because they were outrighted to AAA. So, Jeremy, I don't think that anyone should be surprised by these moves.
A little surprised that Carlos
Really?
Hernandez. Yeah, I
I don't
really
know,
thought Carlos
man.
Hernandez was going to make the opening day roster. I wasn't sure how long he was going to stick around, but I thought, man, inventory and a guy who throws 100, he will be claimed and he was,
Yeah.
if you try to outright him. So you keep him around and you get to a couple weeks into the season. If it's still not working, then you demote him. You might get him through waivers.
Yeah.
Probably not, but a better chance than if you do it now. They went ahead and did it now. They gave Daniel Lynch the final bullpen spot. That was also a surprise to me because, and I guess we'll talk about the pitching staff, or maybe we talk about it now.
Might as well.
Do you have anything else to say about the guys that? I mean, I didn't expect Nelson Velasquez or Nick Prado to. This is exactly what I expected to happen to them.
Yeah, this is exactly what happened. Expected to happen to both Prado and Velasquez. They're still, organizational depth guys. That's cool. Both of them are extremely flawed players, and I'm kind of glad that they're not on the opening day bench, because
Yeah.
I was worried that the Royals would carry at least one of them, just because they had a couple of bench spots up for grabs and they wanted to hold on to them. But alas, here we are. Before we move on too deep into the pitching conversation, though, I do want to say, with Hernandez, then moving on from Hernandez, I wasn't surprised and a little glad that they made the move, because keeping Carlos Hernandez on the roster very much felt like a 2023 Royals move. It's like, okay, well, this guy has stuff. He's flashed. He's done this. He's done that. But has he done it for extended periods of time? Has he done it for an entire season? And unfortunately, Hernandez was out of options for a reason because he was so inconsistent at times that the Royals just had to option him down. So I get it. He's got some really good stuff, but it just wasn't clicking here in Kansas City. I wish him nothing but the best in Philadelphia, and I maybe if they get something out of him, cool. But I'm not counting on it, and I don't think the Royals made the wrong move here. But back to pitching stuff,
Well,
Jeremy.
there were some other moves we should mention also. Ross Stripling, Luke Maile, or Miley, I don't know how you say his last name, both opted out.
Oh, right.
And the Royals announced that James MacArthur, Alec Marsh, and Kyle Wright will all start the year on the injured list.
Yep.
So that all happened. But so yeah, so they also announced the pitching staff through Annie Rogers. The rotation is as we expected. We've got Cole Reagan, and I think it's interesting how she listed them. She's got
Okay.
Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Waka, Chris Bubich, Michael Lorenzen. Now I think everybody who talks about the Royals has been talking all preseason about like, yeah, if Bubich makes it, then what makes the most sense is for Bubich to slot in fourth and Lorenzen to slot in fifth, even though like Lorenzen is the fourth quote unquote starter because he has a locked in spot, whereas Bubich is fighting for one.
Mm-hmm.
But that way, what's interesting to me is the different arguments for why that makes sense. I was like, let's keep the two Michaels apart because they're right-handed changeup guys.
Yeah.
And everyone else was like, let's keep the two lefties apart. And I'm like, Bubich and Reagans aren't really the same kind of lefties, so that doesn't bother me as much. But there's the fair argument that you still got your platoon righties who get in there 2 days in a row and maybe feel more comfortable on the second day. So either way, it does seem like Bubich will be starting fourth and Lorenzen fifth to separate everybody out in the most
Sweet.
effective way. And then the bullpen, you had your guys that were obviously going to make it: Carlos Estevez, Lucas Urseg, Angel Zerpa, John Schreiber. I could probably just
Hunter
pull up the
Harvey.
list instead of trying to do it by memory. Or do you have it pulled up
Yeah,
already?
I got it pulled up
Yeah,
right
you
here.
go.
All right. Estevez, Urseg, Harvey, Schreiber, Stratton, Zerpa,
Harvey.
Long, and
I always forget
Lynch.
Harvey.
It's
I always
it's
forget
easy
Harvey.
to.
I don't know why. So the big surprise to me was I would have had Daniel Lynch the fourth start the year in Omaha, stretched out as a starter. Not because he didn't earn a spot on the major league staff. I think he did, but because the Royals have no starting depth right now. Noah Cameron is
Yeah.
not ready. Alec Marsh is still hurt. Kyle Wright is still hurt. I wanted Daniel Lynch ready to go in case of an early starting injury. And then as guys, Alec Marsh is ready to come back, as Kyle Wright is ready to come back, as Noah Cameron has a few more starts under his belt, then you say, okay, let's get you up here in the bullpen. We don't need you as starting depth anymore. That
Right.
was how I would have done it, and I would have had Carlos Hernandez in my bullpen instead. Until then, obviously the Royals went in a different direction. I mean, if somebody gets hurt in the first week, Lynch is still going to be stretched out from spring training,
Yeah.
so it'll probably be fine. But that's kind of where we're at, I guess.
Yeah. And I fully agree with you about keeping Lynch stretched out. I definitely was seeing him as kind of the next man up while Marsh was on the shelf. But I think that this goes to show that you can have a strong enough spring to make your way onto the opening day roster. That's all Lynch, that's all Quatrero was talking about for the reasoning behind this move. It wasn't we wanted three lefties in the bullpen, or he just was out of options. Like he still has options, one option remaining if I recall correctly. But he was just so good this year that keeping him in the bullpen seemed like the best move.
And he was really, I love him as a reliever. He was really good in the bullpen at the end of last year. So I'm excited to see him in the bullpen. And if he keeps that same role that he had at the end of last year, where he goes 2 or 3 innings and pitches quality relief 2 or 3 innings, that'll help, especially early on as pitchers are still ramping up to their full stamina abilities. And it'll help, it'll help keep him stretched out if he needs to step into the rotation as well.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of good to happen there. It just wasn't how I would have done it. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just trying to explain why I was surprised Carlos Hernandez isn't here and Daniel Lynch is.
I gotcha. So let me go and break this down for you. So Reagan's opening day starter, he's going to start March 27th against the Guardians. And then you're going to have Lugo next Saturday against the Guardians, and then Michael Waka for the series finale against Cleveland. So Bubic is going to start off that series against the Milwaukee Brewers on March 31st, and then Lorenzen will be following up on April 1st. So there's some off days in there that is going to kind of throw a wrench in the early season plans. But to your credit, Annie did report on that, Jeremy, that the Royals specifically wanted to avoid having Reagans and Bubic back-to-back in the
Okay.
rotation. So that is something that they were...
That was the reasoning everyone else had, not the reasoning I had. I was to keep the Michaels apart. So I'm the dummy, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
No. That's you're looking at another layer there, Jeremy. Okay, we're all on the surface level. You are the ball knower here. I hope you know that. But yeah, to your point, the starting options right now are very, very slim. I mean, I was hoping that Stripling would be something, but this spring has just been brutal.
Yeah, I am not disappointed he opted out at all. It'll be really interesting. There's every chance that he'll come back and sign another minor league contract with the Royals because no one else will want him either. So he could add some depth there. Other guys are going to get cut from their teams that the Royals could maybe sign to a minor league deal to get some depth. And hopefully they're not going to need depth in the first. Like, we all expect that a starting pitcher is probably going to get injured at some point this year. It's just how it goes. You usually, I think on the Rangers broadcast yesterday, they were talking about you usually need 9 starters in a season. And so the Royals used basically 6 last year.
Pretty lucky.
They were very lucky. So they're probably going to need more this year, but hopefully not in the first month.
Mm-hmm.
They've avoided the Garrett Cole injury, the Luis Heel injury, all the stuff the Yankees are dealing with. So the other teams are looking at injuries to their starters early on. The Royals still coming out of spring training, healthy in the rotation. We'll just have to see what happens from there, I guess.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed, no one gets hurt in the first month, and it all works out.
Exactly.
But after a month, I would think Alec Marsh would be ready. Noah Cameron would be another month closer to the big leagues. I don't know what's going on with Kyle Wright. I know we threw to hitters for the first time last week, so he's coming. He's working his way back, but I have no idea how long it's going to take him. So and I don't think anyone else does either. Anyone who says it's going to take this long, I think they're making that up.
So according to Rogers, now I know we say Annie's name a lot on this podcast, but that's because there's only one MLB.com beat writer, and I know she has more updates than
I'm sorry, I don't even remember the name of the guy who writes for the Star anymore because the Star has become so irrelevant.
Sad but true, man. Sad but true. So he's expected to return for March, April, or early May, threw in his first minor league game on March 19th, and is now on a regular build-up, so that makes sense. If he hadn't done anything in spring, okay, he starts it off March 19th. He needs a full month and a half-ish for a build-up. Okay, cool. Early May makes sense. Kyle Wright, she has listed as April or May still, so that's very, very interesting. Through his first live BP on March 20th, it sounds like that went very, very smoothly, and I want to temper expectations, but there was a lot of folks who said, hey, this was a very good, like, he looked like his old version.
I want to clarify, I was not calling Annie an idiot. Obviously, there's a projection that he'll be back. And I said anybody who says Kyle Wright, there's a projection that he'll be back then, but I don't think she would promise it.
No.
So that's where I was. Is like I can almost promise you that Alec Marsh will be ready in a month.
Right.
We're familiar with his injury, with his timeline. No one knows what's going on with Kyle Wright. We're making educated guesses at best.
Yeah. Well, thankfully this go around, it's not the shoulder stuff. It was that right hamstring strain that had him sidelined. So that makes me feel a little bit better.
The shoulder stuff is still a concern to me until I see he's 100% back, right?
Right. As it should be. MacArthur, on the other hand, going to be out a lot longer. She has him listed as June as the earliest expected return. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I think these were all, I don't know. I feel good about the news that we got from the Royals this week. The one thing that I feel bad about, like you said, is Vinnie Pasquantino and that hamstring strain. So we're recording this on Sunday. He is supposed to be reevaluated today in Arlington, Texas, ahead of the Royals exhibition games against the Rangers. Vinny sounded okay about it. But of course, he's not a medical professional. He's not on the training staff. He is a player, and with
His gut
no
also not a medical professional.
no, not a medical professional. Noted NFL newsbreaker Vinnie Pasquantino, not noted athletic trainer or medical savant Vinnie Pasquantino. I also thought it was funny. Someone responded to the news or the quote of him saying the gut thing, and someone said, "Well, your gut's pretty far away from your hamstring, there, Vinny."
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's all positive about it, and we know that if he can be on the field, he's going to be there. Him coming back from that broken thumb last year really proved that sentiment in my mind. And you already said what you said about it. I think we're just gonna have to keep an ear out for what the latest is on Vinny and his injury. If you want to keep tabs on it, you better believe we're gonna have the latest up on RoyalsReview.com or on Royals Review's social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky. We keep active up there, and I would suggest you go and follow those on social media. Let's see here, Jeremy. What else am I missing, friend?
Let's see. We talked about Canha. We talked about the pitching staff. We talked about Vinny. We talked about so 3 roster spots got opened up
Yep.
by the removal of those 3 guys whose names I'm blanking. Prado, Velasquez, and Hernandez. My
Yes.
goodness,
You
it is
okay?
a Sunday afternoon
It
for
is.
my brain apparently. Uh, so that leaves 3 spots open on the roster. I think 2 of them are going to be filled by Kevin Biggio and Mark Canha, and I think the last one is just going to sit open for a while.
It might.
There's no reason to rush to fill it, and maybe Gavin Cross starts off in Omaha really good. Somebody gets hurt, and you're ready to bring him up really quick. So you're like, hey, good thing we have that roster spot still.
Right. I think I would rather the Royals kind of just leave it open for right now, but
Yeah,
they've
it also is an opportunity actually to add someone who gets cut by another team.
yep. I was thinking that
So
too.
there's some options there. I'm sure we'll see what they do with it. I don't think they have like a plan for this is what we're gonna do for it right now. They're just like, yep, we got an extra spot. We've got it for if we need it.
Yeah.
So that's good. Good to have flexibility like that.
While we're talking about roster spots, I do want to talk about this last bench spot because it feels like that is still an active like that's kind of the last remaining variable. So you spoke about Biggio, we spoke about Canha. Fermin is going to be on the bench as the backup catcher, but that leaves like one bench spot.
Yep.
And if you would have asked me like 2 months ago and we were in the same situation, I would say, "Oh, well, it's Dairon Blanco. It's Dairon Blanco's spot." I don't know if he's fully healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ready to go. If he's not, well then you get really interesting. And I think that was the only 40-man addition that I wouldn't be surprised to see. They've been getting a lot of play out of Tyler Tolbert this spring, and he's not on the 40-man roster. He was in AAA last year. If they feel like Blanco is going to be hampered or out for an extended period of time, and they really need that base running on the bench, well, Tolbert would be the guy to give you that.
He's not the only option.
No,
Joey
he's
Weaver is also a burner and
correct.
plays the outfield.
That he does. I mean, is there like do you have a favorite to fill that last bench role?
I expect it to be Blanco,
Yeah.
but Harold Castro is another option. He's been kind of hitting, like you said. Tyler Tolbert's an option. Nick Lofton is an option. He's
It's
been
true.
hitting all over spring training, and of course, I think Joey Weimer's still an option. Though I don't think he's a great option at this point. I don't think he did enough to kind of earn a spot the way things have gone. I was hoping he would. I was hoping he would be like, "Oh yeah, my tools, I have them. They work now." That's not what happened in spring training,
Nope.
unfortunately. So there are a lot of guys still for that last spot, but I do expect it to be Blanco still.
I do as well. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but it only depends if they're worried about it enough for Blanco to land on the I would say. If he's not on the IL, he's on the opening day
He's
roster.
been playing in spring training.
Yeah,
If he's playing, and it was an Achilles thing, so it's not like a oh he needs to ramp back up. It was just
true.
like he doesn't need to take practice swings or anything. He just go do your thing, man. You're good.
Fair enough. And I remember when that news broke, you gave a pretty good like, "Hey, this is my situation and this is my experience with a
Yeah,
similar thing."
Achilles things are not, if it's an Achilles tear
Well,
or an Achilles strain, it can be a big deal. But what was described for him was a calcification of the heel that would cause pain on the Achilles, which is a very common Achilles tendonitis, I believe is what it's called.
yes.
A very common thing that happens to all kinds of people, not just athletes. And there are known methods of dealing with it, primarily stretching. You can do surgery, but it's not necessary,
Mhm.
and it would be a long recovery if he did do a surgery, so there's no reason to do that right now. Maybe
Yeah.
it might be an off-season project, but even then, if you just do your stretches, I think you're probably okay, assuming it is similar enough to what I experience.
Correct. Correct. Before we get on out of here, I do want to suggest everyone to go and read up on MLB Pipeline. Jonathan Mayo, a good writer over there, detailed out the Kansas City Royals farm system a little bit more. Some of the cliff notes from that, of course, spoke about Caglione in his spring. Noah Cameron being kind of the next pitching prospect up. But I did find it interesting that the guy that he named as something to prove, Frank Mazzucato, in 2025. It's easy to forget that just a few years ago he was the Royals' first round pick.
Wish I
Now,
could forget that.
I very much remember the initial response to that, but I
It was a
couldn't
very
agree
Dayton
more.
Moore pick.
It very much was that below slot so you can spend the money elsewhere. And to his credit, that approach did net the Royals Ben Kudrna and Carter Jensen. I mean, maybe it worked out, but it
Talk to me when Ben Kudrna and Carter Jensen are also succeeding at the big league level.
I was thinking
I know they're highly rated prospects within the Royal system, but I'm not convinced they would be highly rated prospects in other teams' systems.
I see. And hey, we all know the
And I know
Royals.
people are in love with those two guys, and I'm gonna get flamed for saying that, but they're fine. They're reasonable prospects, but they've done nothing to make me go, "Oh, I'm so glad I have that guy in my farm system."
I gotcha.
I'm
Hey,
like, yeah, all right, cool. Prospect might be good, but nothing like, a Jack Gaglione, certainly.
yeah. Yep, Jackson a class all of his own in the even in the Royals farm system.
And remember, like, there was also, the Royals back in the day took Hunter Dozier under slot so that they could take Jake Junis.
Yeah.
Come on. Or no, it wasn't Jacob Junis. It was Mania, Sean Mania,
Yeah.
who did turn out to be a pretty good pitcher after he left the Royal system
Yep. Yep. Still going strong
and
in
struggled at
2025.
times too.
Yep. But hey, he's still around. Mayo's camp standout pick was a prospect a lot of people probably haven't heard of, Yandel Ricardo, the Kansas City Royals number 11 prospect. He was an international signee from 2024, but I mean, in some limited opportunities, Ricardo has looked good in the field. And Royals, hold on, I don't want to get his title wrong because I have done it before and I don't want to do it. Royals farm director, I thought that's what it was. Mitch Mayer said he didn't look overwhelmed in his first stateside spring training. Got some quote great at bats against some older pitchers end quote. And then the breakout candidate for Mayo is another former international signee, Daniel Vasquez, who had a multi-hit effort in the spring breakout game, got some good speed. He's a great defender, but he just has to continue developing with the hit tool, and hopefully he does. I think now is the time for him to go up to Quad Cities after 3 seasons with the Columbia Fireflies as a younger player. So we will see what happens. Jeremy, any other Royal stuff before we get on
Yep.
out of here?
I was just thinking the Royals signed an undrafted free agent Canadian pitcher today.
Today?
Gave him $425,000 signing bonus, which is the
Interesting.
most the Royals have ever given a UDFA. He was throwing in the 80s last year, and this year he's throwing in the 90s.
Okay.
So I no idea. I don't even remember his name. No idea what's going to happen there. But obviously, the Royals saw something they really liked.
They're getting creative with rounding out the old farm system. I do like it. Shoot, I will have to go and do some research on that because I completely missed that.
Yeah, I just randomly saw it on Blue Sky right before we started recording. So
Gotcha.
let me see if I can pull this up real quick and at least give you his name.
Please do.
Great podcasting
It
right
is.
here.
It is. We listen. I am not opposed to some dead air.
Ryan McDonough. He's a non-drafted free agent. Gave him 425,000. 275,000 of that counts towards last year's bonus pool. He threw in the mid 80s as a Canadian high school two-way guy last year, and has been 92 to 96 this spring as a pitcher only. The largest previous largest previous high school in DFA,
Wow.
and this may be anyone has ever
Yeah.
done, was 400,000 for Felipe Perez in 2012.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
this is from Jim Callis on Blue Sky. I'm not actually sure who that is.
Oh,
The
Jim?
senior writer for MLB Pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah, he's another pipeline guy, so I would
Yeah.
certainly go with that. That's pretty notable though that it's such a big bonus. I
Yeah, I
didn't
mean that's
realize
that's
that.
more than the drafted guys get in
Yeah.
the later rounds. I think
So,
after the 10th round, you get 275 if I remember correctly.
mhm. So the Royals must think that that he's going to be a good project for them. We'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, Jeremy, I say let's go ahead and get on with our reviews because I don't know, man. I'm ready for them to come out and say this is the opening day roster. Get your
For
tickets,
sure.
and this is the last Sunday without having Major League Baseball to talk about. So I'm gonna do a quick review. I don't know if I've reviewed this before, but a couple months back, I told Honey like, "Hey, I really want this bottle of whiskey. It's called Writer's Tears. It's a good bottle of whiskey. It's nothing like top shelf or anything like that, but it's good for sipping on." And she couldn't find Writer's Tears, so she got Writer's Tears Redhead, which is like their next shelf up, and I've just been loving it. So all it is I'm making sure that I pull up the description so I don't say the wrong thing that it is aged in. It's aged in wine casks afterward. So it's already an Irish whiskey, and man, it's really good. I already loved their baseline stuff, but this is just a different flavor. Goes down very, very smooth. And if you find a bottle of it, I would suggest at least giving it a shot. It's a good one to keep up on the shelf. But Jeremy, over to you.
Yeah, so first an observation. I did watch Major League after we recorded
Good.
last time. I watched it again. Still a great movie, still a very flawed movie, but still a great movie. And I noticed I've watched it so many times, but I noticed for the first time as they're on the prop plane, as
Mhm.
she continues to cut the funding down for the team to try and convince them to lose more. They're on the prop plane and there's a storm happening and they're all kind of freaking out. And not Jobu, the guy who worships Jobu or whatever.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name.
I'm blanking on it too, but I know what you're talking
Serrano,
about.
Pedro Serrano.
Thank you.
He starts like crossing himself, like, what are we gonna do? This play, and the resident Christian, the clubhouse Christian, leans across the aisle and is like, "Yeah, you should pray to Jesus now about this airplane." I never noticed before that the clubhouse Christian, as he's preaching to this guy that your religion isn't good enough, is literally he's got a Hustler magazine open in his lap.
What?
Like,
That's
okay,
pretty
my
funny.
guy, sure.
That's on brand for Major League comedy.
Yeah, it is. I can't believe I missed that. That's so good.
That's why you rewatch movies.
Absolutely. And no one has Mr. Baseball to stream, so I
Mm.
just bought it today on maybe this will be my review if I can't think of anything else to say here in the next couple of minutes. I bought it on Google Video on YouTube
Oh,
because I've connected it to my Movies Anywhere account. Now, Movies Anywhere is this really cool thing where you can connect it to a bunch of different services: Apple, YouTube, Microsoft, Fandango,
Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon, and any movie you buy on any of those services gets tied into your Movies Anywhere account, and then you can watch it anywhere, and you get to keep that whether you've still got those accounts or not. So I bought it on YouTube to add it to my Movies Anywhere account, where I've got a whole bunch of movies that I really like that I want to have digital versions of. I thought about trying to buy like a DVD or a Blu-ray of it, but it was going to be like $25. And I'm like,
Oof.
this is an this is a 40-year-old movie. Why are we doing this? No one will even keep it on their streaming service. And you want me to pay 25 for this? I still paid 15, which is probably
Oof.
still too much, but
A little bit, yeah. You
It's
really want to watch Mr.
HD.
Baseball.
Amazon wanted 20 for the HD and 15 for the SD, and I was like, no, thank you.
Is it in the
So, Movies
4:3
Anywhere is a pretty
ratio?
cool service. Oh, you know what? I did also watch another movie over the weekend.
Okay.
That should be my real review.
Yeah, what's up?
You can ignore everything else I just said if you want. Ultraman Rising, which
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah.
a kind of 3D animation anime kind of movie. It's based on the long running Ultraman series in Japan. And it stars a guy named Kinsato who grows up to become a Major League Baseball player, goes and plays for the Dodgers, and then goes back home to Japan to join the Yomiuri Giants because his dad is injured and he needs to take over the mantle of Ultraman. And it was a really cute movie. My friend was like, "It's baseball." And I'm like, "Is it about baseball or does it have baseball in it? Because it's called Ultraman Rising and I know what Ultraman is, and that's not baseball." And she's like, "I don't know, but it's got baseball." And I'm like, "All right, so if you're don't watch it because like baseball, but it does have some baseball stuff in it. Not good baseball stuff, but baseball stuff, like some of the stats they threw out there, I'm just like, nope, that didn't happen."
That's it.
But it's a really cute movie. It was a lot of fun, and especially if you have kids, I think you'd really enjoy it. Or if you're like me and you're like, "Hey, I don't have kids, but sometimes I like uncomplicated movies that are just
Yeah.
like, hey, let's watch an uncomplicated, fun little movie.
Yep. Let's actually give our brain a break for a little bit and just enjoy something.
Not childish, just uncomplicated."
That's a good way to put it, Jeremy. Alrighty, folks. Hey, first off, thank you for that, Jeremy. I had forgot about that movie to be honest.
I'm so bummed because it has a sequel hook at the end of it, and it was
No,
released years ago, and there's no sequel anywhere to be seen.
nope. I think they
Come on.
scrapped it. Womp womp. It happens.
It's on
All right.
Netflix, by the way, if you're like,
Yes.
"I want to watch that now." Where is that?
Yep. It is on Netflix. Ultraman Rising once again. Alrighty, folks, that is going to do it for us today on the Royals Rundown podcast. We do appreciate y'all sticking around with us. I'm not going to give you a howdy doody or a sayonara or nothing like that. You can keep that cowboy funkiness at the beginning of the episode. But if you want to keep that cowboy funkiness going with us, you can do so on social media. Our social media links are down in the podcast description below. But if you like our funkiness or the Kansas City Royals, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening at. Jeremy, do you have something to say? You're making some funny faces at me. Okay.
I can't with you.
All right. I am Jacob Milham. There, Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, go Royals.
Play that funky music, cowboy.